For more on the president's State of the Union address and where his agenda goes from here, I want to bring in Yamiche Alcindor, NBC News Washington correspondent and moderator of Washington Week on PBS, Cristina Londoño, senior correspondent for Telemundo, and Julian Castro, the former Secretary for Housing and Urban Development, 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, also an MSNBC political analyst. It's great to see you all, dear friends. Thank you for being with us. Julian, I want to just get your reaction to the president. He was very forceful, very directly speaking to Putin, about a third of his speech on Ukraine.
Best part of his speech, I think. It rallied the folks in that room. Oftentimes you see from the very beginning Republicans and Democrats, Democrats will stand up and cheer, Republicans will stay seated. But on this one, I thought people were pretty united. And he cast on us versus them, America standing up for freedom and democracy and opportunity, and Putin as the bad guy. I thought that was easily the best part of his speech, and it laid down a marker for direction that our country is going to go.
Cristina, what did you think of the president spending up to a third of the speech specifically dealing with Ukraine?
And it was a speech he didn't want to give. That was the one that was not planned. He was going to reshuffle his national agenda. And then he spent most of the time in Ukraine. And that was good because, as Julian was saying, it united the country. We saw a lot of yellow and blue in the room. And people were rallying behind the president, and he did show a united America to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Yamiche, one of the president's objectives clearly was to speak to Americans' concerns about the effects of this crisis, possibly on our economy, on our pocketbooks, gas prices, things like that. He said, quote, "I want you to know that we're going to be okay." What is his plan to, in a way, insulate us in the United States from what is happening in Ukraine?
Well, it's a great question. And when I've been talking to White House officials, they say they're going to try to do all they can. That includes, of course, dealing with oil reserves, trying to deal with the energy, trying to make sure that gas prices stay low. The complication is that history is not on their side. Presidents have tried to deal with inflation for years, for decades, really. They are limited in what they can do in terms of impacting the economy, in terms of really making people save money at the grocery store, at the gas stations. That being said, this is a White House that feels good this morning about the president's speech. They feel confident. He was trying to talk to heads and hearts. But I have to also tell you there is some criticism, of course. There's criticism about the fact that he talked about funding the police without talking about Black Lives Matter and the disproportionate rate that Black people continue to be killed at. There was also some frustration when he was talking about sort of securing our borders, but didn't really talk about Dreamers and all of the different sort of immigration reforms the Democrats have not been able to get through. So it was a speech that got mixed reviews, but overall the White House still is feeling good.
And Julian, it's interesting about the immigration issue because the president mixed immigration reform with the border, something that, they're not the same thing, right? And you've been so clear on this. On immigration, do you think he got a point across, maybe something that could produce something?
Well, I hope so. I mean, what he did, though, is really the calculus that has been in place for at least the last 30 years, which is to say we got to be tough on the border, but hey, then let's get this done over here. I thought that there was a little bit of a sleight of hand, Jose, on immigration reform. He did mention briefly Dreamers and essential workers, farm workers, but we used to talk about a pathway to citizenship for 10 to 11 million undocumented immigrants as long as they didn't commit a felony and took other steps. Here, he really set out specific groups and left it at that. So in that sense, he really didn't go as far as he or others have in the past on the immigration reform part, as Yamiche said. That was a disappointment, in addition to, I think, taking up a little bit of the right-wing talking points on securing the border after Trump and others have put so many more people on the ground down there, so many more resources. To me, it seems like the border is about as secure as it's ever been.
And again, there is a difference between border policy, border protection, and then immigration reform of 10, 11, 12 million people.
Absolutely.
Who
people
have been
who are here
for decades, who have children born in the United States, who have been participating and are part of and parcel of our economy. Cristina, I want to get your reaction to something the president said specifically on immigration. Take a listen to this.
Folks, if we're to advance liberty and justice, we need to secure our border and fix the immigration system. We're putting in place dedicated immigration judges, a significant larger number, so families fleeing persecution and violence can have their cases heard faster, and those who don't legitimately hear can be sent back.
His comments about the deportations were ad lib. They were not part of the prepared remarks, right? He didn't have to. It wasn't in the prepared remarks to say so they can be sent back. How are communities, immigrant communities in our country reacting to this?
Well, not very happy, Jose. I've been covering immigration protests in front of the White House. Very angry one on President's Day. They're telling President Biden they're not going to vote for him. He promised something. He promised immigration reform. And they're just saying that if they don't see results from here to November, they're going to stay home. And if he's pushing this deportation line on one side, all the immigrants, and including Congress people, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez yesterday was saying, we want to see some kind of executive action. We want to see some relief for the immigrant community. And we want to see how he's going to get to that immigration reform that he's talking about. So they're not giving him a free pass.
Yamiche, another top issue the president addressed was the way inflation and the supply chain issues are hitting American families. The president said he's committed to reinvesting in American manufacturing, decreasing our reliance on other nations. He's not the first president to have said this. How does the White House plan to achieve this?
Well, they're going to continue to tout this idea of making sure that more things are made in America and that there really needs to be lower costs when it comes to people and consumers and what they see at their stores, but also not taking away wages from workers. They're really trying to, I think, juggle this idea that they want us in some ways support unions, support working class people, while also saying that inflation, part of inflation needs to be that companies need to be okay with making a little bit less money. They've been pointing it sometimes to the bonuses that we've seen CEOs get and the companies making a number of profits while inflation is going on. But again, history is not on their side. You look at other presidents, Lyndon B. Johnson, others have really tried to deal with inflation, and it's really hard from the White House's point of view historically to impact inflation. But it's the thing that's on people's minds. Obviously, we're talking about Ukraine and Europe. But when I talk to my family in Miami, my mom's like, why am I paying more for bread? How am I going to fill up my car tank? That's the thing that's on top of mind on people's minds. And the White House understands that. They understand that that's something that's going to impact them, frankly, in the midterms.
Julian, I mean, look, the folks in Texas are asking those same questions that they're asking in Miami and throughout this country. Did the president, you think, need to say something more on this issue?
Well, I mean, I think he said a lot in terms of his plan to try and, both on the Russia-Ukraine issue, shield Americans from some of the economic pain, and then also on inflation, what they're going to do to try and control it. I think Yamiche is right that it's tough to do, right? Presidents always try and fight this battle and oftentimes don't come out on top. Most people don't follow politics that closely. What they know is what they have to spend every single day. So in that sense, you know, this is a very difficult thing for Joe Biden to manage.